At $200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES.
Only on Super NES.
You're listening to the SNES podcast with your host, Soul Blazer.
Hello everybody, this is the Super NES podcast episode number 207. I am Greg, joined by always by Joe.
Hello.
Very glad to have you here with us again. Sorry about the delay in recording this episode. I've been sick for a while, but we are now back to bring you another game that Joe wanted to look at this time. This was your pick this time, Joe, right?
Yeah.
So which game did you pick this time?
So I thought it was a good idea to cover Battletoads in Battlemanics. I expected this to be a port of the arcade game.
Right, it's not.
What a surprise.
What was your motivation for picking this?
Well, I mean, I love the Battletoads arcade game. And you had already covered Double Dragon and Battletoads. And I figured, this is another beat 'em up that we can cover. Kind of a breezy episode. And it's light, on research. And I figured, I'd love to see what the port of the arcade game actually looked like on the Super Nintendo. And then I played it and realized right away that this is not that. And I cried in the corner for about an hour.
Yeah, I like the Battletoad games. I think, yes, they are just like TMT knockoffs, but, at least they were, at least these games were very well programmed and still a lot of fun despite being knockoffs, because Rare, the developer who did these games, obviously was one of the best companies when it came to making games for, like Nintendo systems. So, these games still have their own flair to it, despite being like knockoffs. So, I played the arcade version a little bit. I think it is fun. Most of my time experience was spent playing the NES Battletoads game as a kid, which is like balls hard. But it's fun, but it's a very very difficult game. It's one of those games I certainly could not beat until the emulation came along several years later.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know why they never ported the arcade game to the arcade game. I think, could just be down to the simple technical reason that no system time could could handle it well enough. So because I do remember it being like a pretty intense game as far as graphics and sprites and everything. So they made it felt that the limitations would just neuter the port too much.
Yeah, and I'd be willing to lean into that if Turtles in Time had not been created for the Super Nintendo, because that game is not only a technical marvel in the arcade with what it can do and a lot of the throwing the soldiers towards the screen and all that, which I think is a lot more powerful and more taxing on the system than Battletoads and the morphs. Which is really all you get, with Battletoads is the morphs. So, animate the rams, animate a giant foot, animate a giant fist, But, yeah, I don't know. If Turtles in Time didn't exist, I'd be with you and be like, hey, you know what? Makes sense. They couldn't release a arcade port of Battletoads. But with Turtles in Time existing, it's one of those that still makes me scratch my head. Because I feel like that was money left on the table.
Like I said, I'm not really quite sure. Maybe the fact that Battletoads Arcade did not come out until 1994, 1 year after this game did, and they kind of felt that maybe the games were just too similar to warrant it. But
maybe.
But I'm not really quite sure. So, did you ever play the new Battletoads game, by the way?
Yes.
I never did. How was it?
So the critics bashed it for being repetitive and blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't the original Battletoads. They definitely changed the art style. But other than that, the characters very much feel like the Battletoads. Graphically, I think the game looks great. And it's a side-scrolling beat-em-up. There's not much more that you can do with a side-scrolling beat-em-up. It's got all the animations that you would expect to have with Battletoads. You know, they do their morphs and things like that. It's got up to, 3-player simultaneous action. I thought overall it was a pretty damn good game. I just, it's difficult, but also, it's Battletoads. I expect that.
Yeah, exactly. So they did release Battletoads Arcade finally with a home port because it was available. Because both that game and also the NES Battletoads was included as part of the rare
Yes.
Like part of the rare replay collection, the 2015. But so the game finally did get like home port, but it's a shame they got like locked away on the Xbox. Also, by the way, I never understood why they didn't like port it out to PlayStation or Steam at least. But so
Yeah.
But anyway, it is what it is. So yeah, I've played most of the Battletoad games over the years. Not the newer one, but Battletoads Double Dragon was released at the same time as Battletoads Battlemaniacs.
Yeah.
So, as you mentioned, we already covered the game. It's fun for what it is. So, the Game Boy version of the Game Boy version of the game are actually pretty good, despite being like stripped down versions. Like versions like our console ones. So, I did not play this back in the day. For some reason, I just missed it. But so this is my first time actually playing the game. So so it helped to differentiate the game from the other Battletoads games. This is given like a full longer title of Battletoads and Battlemaniacs. They also try to tie the name into the plot too, as well, to help make it like a bit different. For that. So, and as Joe already mentioned, this is not a port. This is not a port like the arcade version. This is more of I'd call it a reimagining like the NES game, because it is a different game. However, a lot of the stages are definitely either taken directly from or heavily inspired by NES stages. So, if you're familiar with the NES version of the game, you'll be right at home here, because a lot of the game is similar. But so I don't know why they did that. It may simply been a case of trying to cut down on development time, get the game out faster. Because obviously it's a lot easier to port something than just having making a thing like from scratch. But so it's not to say this version of the game doesn't have new stuff in it. It does, most definitely. But definitely it's like anybody's familiar with the NES version of the game will be like, okay, yeah, this is like a better version of that. So I don't know how much you played original Battletoads, Joe. I know they did port that to Genesis, but I'm not sure.
So I played the original Battletoads on the NES.
Okay, yep.
Thankfully, when I finally got the game, I had the Game Genie at the time, so I did beat the NES Battletoads with a little help. So, yeah, going and play, popping this game in and playing it, I realized a lot of similarities, but, it's for the Super Nintendo, so it's spruced up a bit.
Yes, yeah. So like Battletoads, this game has a plot which is told to you like the beginning, through like a cartoonish cutscene, and also there are other various cutscenes in the game as well. The games will let you play through it. I'm not going to go ahead and rehash the whole plot here, but it's just basically it's your simple rescue mission of trying to defeat the Dark Queen and trying to rescue one of your friends. Like in this case, Zitz. Once again, you go and play as two or three of the Battletoads. Again, you get system limitations, I'm sure. So.
Yeah, but you know what? I like that they used the story plot as a way to cover up the system limitations, and they were just like, look, instead of giving you 3 to play with, Zit's been kidnapped. You can't play as him.
Right.
I was okay with that.
Yeah.
What I wasn't okay with is, and spoiler, Silas Volkmar, who is the one who ends up stealing Zitz or kidnapping Zitz, with help of the Dark Queen, never shows up again, ever.
Yeah, that is kind of strange.
And that's one of the things that I will get into when we start going over the game. But that is one of the things that did not sit right with me and just felt off about this game.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why. Maybe Rare had plans to use him in later games and it never happened for whatever reason. So, I'm not really sure. So yeah. So back towards Battlemaniacs, just to finish up the development here, like real quick. Got released worldwide. It was developed by Rare. Where it got published, depending upon where in the world you are. In North America, the game got published by TradeWest, who had the rights to the series at the time. In Europe and Australia, Nintendo had the publishing duties themselves, which was fairly common for a bunch of their game. Like a bunch of games that Nintendo published in other markets, and another company had the rights to publish it, like Japan. So the game got released in 1993. Sorry. Through North America, Europe, and Australia, finally coming out in Japan in January 1994. This is interesting. There actually was a Sega Master System of the game developed as well too. So because the Master System was still doing pretty well in Europe and Brazil at the time, so they figured that they were going to go ahead and port the game to that system, even though it was a step down, obviously, like the Super NES, like it do.
Yeah.
So, but 1994 was even the planned release for the game in Europe was late even by Master System standards, because even though there were still games being released in Europe at that time, it was definitely toward the tail end of Master System's lifetime for sure.
Yeah.
So the game's complete and actually got to the point of being reviewed by British magazines in preparation for its release. But in the end, sadly, that game never came out in Europe. So. That ROM version is available to find online, though, if you want to play it. All limitations aside, it's a pretty good port of the game. I mean, yes, it is stripped down, but it still plays and feels very well. So
Yeah.
And then to make things even more curious, Tectoy, the company in Brazil, which is responsible for supporting the Master System the down there until. Actually, fairly recently, I think they're still. I think Tectoy is still releasing Master System clones down there. So, they've given the system a long support in Brazil. They did release the game in Brazil in 1996. However, this was an unfinished and unpolished version of the European version of the game. Some stages did not have music and minor glitches. There's a choppy scrolling floor in the bonus stages and invisible obstacles in the turbo tunnels.
Yeah.
So, obviously, just a cash grab, just to be able to get something out the door at least. So, that's curious they did that, but yeah. So game has 6 stages. The game is your basic side-scrolling beat 'em up platform stuff that you're familiar with, either either through other similar games or other past Battletoad games in the past. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, plays very similar to the NES game because the flavors of all the stages were inspired. You play either as Rash or Pimple. One change they have made to this game. I might as well just mention this now. We'll get more into the reason for this later on. But overall, I think this game is easier than the NES Battletoads game. And one reason they make it easier is the health gauges have bigger gauges for you. So you're actually able to take more damage than you could in the version of the game. Also, one of the big differences of this game is that Rash or Pimple, depending upon who you're playing as, has their own individual combo attacks and special moves. Pimple, for example, can use this BT big hammer special move in a combo.
Yeah.
Where basically you instantly kill somebody, which is nice. Rash, on the other hand, can use this classic big boot block move like a retro game, which also has a So it just does a heck of a lot of damage. So I prefer using. So, like, I preferred using Pimple a little bit more because I thought his move was better. That said, the game is perfectly fun and perfectly winnable like both characters.
Yeah.
So, once you got over your initial disappointment about the game, Joe, what'd you think?
So, the biggest takeaway for me is that this felt like a remaster or remake of the NES.
Which it is in many ways. Yeah. So, yeah.
The first stage is a beat-em-up stage, very much like it was in the NES. Your second stage, which, by the way, like, it's nice that we have a bigger health gauge here, but the reality is there are a lot of cheap deaths that happen. Just in the first level, there are pieces of ground that just break away and lead to nothingness. Bridges end up falling down, but there's an enemy at the end of the bridge. If you don't hit that enemy before the enemy hits you, you're falling backwards into the lava pits. Other than that, pretty much the first level of the game is what you'd expect for a typical beat 'em up. You got your different enemies shown by different colors by how difficult they are. And then you get your boss at the end. And the boss fight was actually kind of fun. He's very simple. He just kind of does like a ground pound and whatever else. But like after that, I don't know, like it just felt so samey to me to the NES game that I kind of lost interest, to be honest. So like the second stage, you have a descending stage, which is auto-scrolling. And like, it's not bad. It starts off good. You got your enemies on the sides. You got, you're being lowered down through some logs. Obviously you touch the logs, you're going to take damage, that sort of thing. But then like, there's a point in the level, like towards like what would be the end of the level, where it becomes even more crazy because the pattern itself starts to be more jerky left and right. But yet also the acceleration has been upped. So it's just like a free fall drop. And it's like you have to be pinpoint accurate going through there. Before I decided, I streamed this on my Twitch. I decided to input Game Genie codes to make it so that I did not take damage from basically everything. This is where I died. And it got me incredibly frustrated because you were giving 3 lives and 3 continues. So technically you have 9 lives altogether to be able to beat this game. No password system, no nothing. Like, you got to beat it with these 9 guys, and that's it. Which I think
one code you can use. Like, there is one code you can use in the regular version of the game, but
okay. So clearly, I didn't look for codes. I was like, I got the Game Genie. I'm just putting the Game Genie in.
Right.
So, like, finally, when I got through the descending stage, I was met with the rocket sled stage. This is the stage that everybody loves in the NES game, because it will kill you over and over again, unless you have a very good memory. Same thing here. I did really good through the first part of it because, obviously moving left and right and getting the jump. The blocks flash before they come flying at you, so it kind of gives you a hint of what's happening and what's going to happen, so you can kind of prepare for it. But that doesn't mean that it's great. The one thing I did like, and you might agree with this as well, is with this rocket sled stage, as grindy as it is, it does offer checkpoints. So if you get a good portion of the way through the rocket sled stage and die, it will restart you at that checkpoint, which is nice.
Yes.
But also keep in mind, you have 3 continues, so if you're on your 9th guy, there's no continue. You're starting all the way back from the very beginning. Then the 4th level They had a level like this in the NES game as well, where you have to ride snakes to be able to get to different things. This level drove me nuts. I did get through it, but it took me 3 different attempts because there is a point at the very end where you're riding the snake and you have to crouch. And as you crouch, you slide across the thing of ice. And if your momentum was not enough to reach the hole at the end, you were going to be stuck. And I do mean stuck, as in if you end up not ducking and you pick yourself up, you will hit spikes, you will die. Literally centimeters, pixels from the end. That drove me nuts. I did that actually twice.
Sure.
Just because momentum, like I love that momentum is a thing, but it's like momentum should not be the deciding factor on you beating a level. That was just my opinion. The fifth level, again, like I went into this expecting a platformer beat 'em up, with light platforming, more beat 'em up, and really the first stage is the only beat 'em up level. All the rest of them are either auto scrolling. Or the snake level's kind of platforming, but it's a gimmick level. So the 5th level is the same thing. You're on a pair of handlebars. You're kind of going through like a roller coaster type maze thing, and you have to beat a enemy that's coming after you on handlebars as well. But he's got a giant circular saw on his, and it is very, very difficult. Like you have to be on point with every single turn and button press to be able to beat him. And by this point, like I am just like, I'm done. In all honesty, like I had the codes in, I'm obviously not able to die, but like constantly getting caught, especially on this level, like just drove me, I was infuriated. And then finally we have the last level where you're descending a tower. First time I let the rat get away, and I thought I was good until the tower blew up. Come to find out, you have to beat this rat up while you're descending the tower. If you just descend the tower and beat him, he's still going to come down and hit the plunger and cause the tower to explode. So this was another one this is a little better, but still frustrating. And then at the end of the level, you get what I would consider the most underwhelming boss fight of all time. Literally, the Evil Queen is so easy to beat that it's quite laughable compared to the rest of the game. And honestly, like, for me, like, I love that you got the animation for the hands that, turning the hammer fist. You've got the big ram head, you get like the big enlarged foot, like all that stuff is fantastic. I love that they poured over this stuff. But the biggest thing for me was the final boss being a big letdown, which in my opinion is not the final boss. This game feels unfinished. And what I mean by unfinished, it's not the gameplay or anything like that. I feel like there is another at least 3, if not another 5 levels that they probably had planned to, go with this game. But I have a feeling that since, Battletoads and Double Dragon was being developed at the same time, that kind of hindered this. Because, like I said, as easy as the Evil Queen goes down, it feels like there should be more. And there's probably going to be another encounter with her, which is why it's so, quick and easy to beat her. And then it goes back to the beginning, like Silas Volcamore just not showing up ever again. I feel like, again, like he was going to be used down the line as like maybe the main big bad.
Yeah.
Out, and it's not there. One thing I will give this game credit for is the bowling bonus stages are quite
there's
fun.
2 of them. Yep.
Yeah, those were quite fun. And I at first I was like, oh, cool, you just knock down the pins and everything else. But like any other level, they got ways to trick you. And soon, as you're collecting pins, which the pins help you get lives and whatever else, bombs started showing up as well as enemies. So there's some strategy there to be able to pick up, the pins and avoid everything else. But overall, it was a disappointment because to me this just felt like a remaster of the NES game, where like it felt like there was an intent to improve on that, and you could see it. Like there's definitely intent there to make this a better game, but it's one of those like, okay, well maybe you didn't play the NES version, so here's the NES version for the Super Nintendo, and this is the beginning of the adventure. But once you get through these stages, you'll get to see what we really had planned, and it just didn't come to fruition. Overall, I found this to be very disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree with some of that. I did not hate the game as much as you did. So I thought this was actually a very fun game. I think that, I do agree with you that part of the game does feel like unfinished for sure, but, just add just add on to a couple of notes. There's no option screen, which you already mentioned. Right. Unfortunately, you pretty much only have a stereo mono, and that's it. You can't play with a second player simultaneously, and there is either and there is that mode that's available in some games where it's like you either can hurt each other or not, right. Which is nice. There is that one final quick fight with Volkmir's ship at the very end of the game, which will affect what ending you get. It's not a huge difference though. It's like, you just simply have to just hit him 3 times, the 3 times like missiles before he escapes. Yeah. So if you do that, you get a slightly better fight, a slightly better ending than if you don't. So, but yeah, I mean, it's like, I think this is like. I wasn't going into this game expecting very much, and what here I think is like it's fine. It's like this is like basic Battletoads gameplay to me. It's like it was just more of the same for what I got out of the NES. I think anybody who's not played the NES version of the game will probably enjoy the game even more because you won't have that experience to color and/or nostalgia. Trip you as far as how similar this game is to the NES original, like in many ways. But the programming of the game, I think, is very well done. The graphics look great. The sprites, all the sprites in this game are very large, detailed, and colorful. So they're all. They all look very good. The music is very fitting. Like this game, it's a very rockin' hard paced, fast driven soundtrack that fits the overall tone of the game very good. And while the game is indeed hard, I definitely agree with you 100% on that. This game's still easier than this version of the game is still easier than the NES original. For sure.
Yeah,
hands
absolutely.
down. But in fact, I'd probably even go so far as to say that I think this game is easier than Super Star Wars games for the system. But
yeah, that's fair. And I mean, if you remember, I wasn't a big fan of those games either. So
yeah, I mean, yeah. Don't get me wrong. This is not a cakewalk, but this game is definitely hard. It's definitely not as hard as some of the other versions of the game that you can play out there. I remember the arcade version being very difficult too. So it's like Battletoads is just known for being a very difficult series. Period.
Yeah. And you're right. Like I did browse over that part of my notes. Visually, this game is fantastic, and the music is top notch. So I mean, there's definitely some bright points in the game. It's not all negative.
Yeah. Well, I guess it all depends upon what you're expecting flat out of the game, because I think like Joe said, this is not really a beat 'em up. It's there's really only one pure classic side-scrolling beat 'em up game in this game, and everything else is either an obstacle course or race on rails or whatnot. So it's if you go in this game knowing what to expect, I think you would have a fun time with it. But if you're looking for a Battletoads experience without the same aggravation and hair pulling that the NES arcade games are known for, then you definitely can have a fun game with this. It's not easy by any means, but I think this is a pretty good entry level to the series as far as like wanting to see what a Battletoads game is like, because because this capture you capture the essence of Battletoads very well here, especially if you're able to play the game with somebody else.
Yeah.
I'm sure 2-player mode certainly adds to the fun of the game a lot. But that said, there are better Battletoads games out there. So if you're looking for like more, so if you're looking for the more perfect experience, I wouldn't start, I would not start on this one. But like I said, yeah, if you know what you're getting into, and you know what to expect, I think this is a good game. But if you want something else like Joe did, then you're probably gonna like walk away like being disappointed. That's fair, because it's like what this game is and what it presents itself to be are two like very different things, and it's pretty short. The playthroughs online are about half an hour if you know what you're doing. So this is not a game I think that has a lot of like the high replay value to it, unfortunately. But it's like, did it feel quickly put together as a cash grab? Yes, but it's still very well programmed. Rare knew what they're doing with the game. There's nothing broken with the game. The gameplay mechanics itself are mechanically solid.
Yeah.
So this game could have been a lot worse for sure. But I think at the end it all just pretty. I think at the end what you could take away from this game all depends upon what you're picking from in the first place.
Yeah, I agree.
But anyway, the game did review very well when it came out. Pretty much they said the same thing about the same thing about the game that we already just commented on. Praise for its graphics and music, criticized for its lack of originality, like high difficulty. So, the game ranking aggregator score for this game was 78%. So. And like modern reviews of this game are still like pretty contemporary and pleasing, and saying the game holds up very well today.
Yeah.
Games Radar went so far as to give this game 30th best game on the system.
Okay.
As far as the ratings went, Complex 2018 gave it 39th game of all time on the system. So, and Arcade Sushi called it the 4th best retro game, like the beat 'em up series, like on the system. Okay. So, still a lot of a lot of people still think very highly of the game today. I did mention some codes. The North American version of the game only has one code for some reason. The Japanese version of the game had a 9 lives code that was only present in that one. And the Sega Master System that ported the game had its age select. The only code you can have this one though is you can start off the game with 5 lives and 5 continues, which is a little bit better than the default 3 lives and 3 continues that they gave you to start with. So. It's also possible to put a code in on the menu screen to give your Toad a super jump in the game if you want to as well too.
Oh, okay.
So there are like a few codes present in this game at least. The game sold relatively well, so therefore it's not that hard to find like on eBay. I think because it is a rare game, however, and rare games are known for being like very, very good. The game's price is pretty good. It's definitely a higher price than average for a Super NES game. I found 40 copies of this game currently listed on eBay at the time of doing research. 53 copies recently sold. These prices include shipping for North American copies only. Cart only examples of this game sold anywhere from $27 to $62. So, and CIB again, wide difference in pricing in CIB depending upon the quality of materials and how complete it actually is. Those setting from $78 at the low end to all the way up to a whopping $405 at the high end for a mint complete perfect copy of the game. So, the game definitely is kind of pricey on cart and it's not been re-released anywhere.
Yeah.
If you want a physical copy of the game, you have to pay for it, unfortunately.
Yep.
But So yeah, so this game does not get the attention. This game does not get the attention that the NES Big Brother does for obvious reasons. It doesn't deserve the attention. I think because the NES game is still a better game, like all in all for sure. But but if you want like like I said, if you want like an upgraded, improved version of a game heavily inspired by the NES original, that's not quite as difficult. This is definitely like up your alley then, because at least this at least the way you can beat this game without like ripping your hair out. You're trying to play it. Even though there are difficult spots, the overall difficulty of this game is definitely way down, and so I certainly appreciate that.
Yeah, and like any game that we cover, I would never deter anyone from trying it. I actually encourage anybody to definitely try it and form their own opinion of the game for sure.
Yeah, you just want to make sure you're going into the game knowing what you're actually playing, not make the same mistake that Joe did. So, but well, all right. So, well, at least you got to check this game out then, Joe. But you could. But as always, we appreciate everybody taking time to listen to us on the podcast for always. Next time, we're covering a fighting game again. In the system. We're going to be looking at the Super NES version of TMOT Tournament Fighters, which hopefully Joe has a more higher opinion of.
We shall see.
Have you not played it before?
So I haven't played the Super Nintendo version.
Really? Okay. All right. Okay.
I had the Genesis version, and then I did at some point get the NES version. So those two I am somewhat familiar with, and all three versions of the game are very different.
Yes.
So I am definitely looking forward to getting my hands on the Super Nintendo version. But yeah, it's kind of going in blind like I did here with Battletoads. So I'm interested.
And all three versions. Yep, and all three versions of the game are also included like in the recently released the Cowabunga collection as well.
Yes.
So, did you ever pick that up?
So I haven't picked that up. I need to pick that up.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it. Like it's worth it. So like it's a very excellent collection. Yeah. So and there's additional bonus stuff included with it too. So. But all right, so we appreciate everybody listening to the podcast as always. If you have any questions, feedback, comments, you feel free to leave my Facebook group, or you can also send me an email directly at the SNESpodcast@yahoo.com. Joe, where can they find you at?
You can find me on my very public Facebook. Also, you can find me on Twitter at JOESUX30. And I can be found on Twitch at JOESUX69. Not family friendly.
Yeah, most streamers are not.
Yeah. My Battletoads playthrough was, it was very adult oriented with the words that were coming out of my mouth. Needless to say.
Yes, I'm sure. But all right. That's a wrap for this episode. Thank you again, everybody, for listening. We always appreciate it. Stay safe, be well. Catch you again next time. See you later, all.
Bye.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man. Now you're playing with power. Deep power.